Spectre Vision Radio.
I know you've seen the video. I could see it in the way you looked at me, different. Look, I get it. I mean, I do. You can't unsee a person acting that way. But maybe you should actually get all the facts, huh? Hear my side of the story before you judge. Fuck this.
Since you won't speak to me, I thought I'd send you a letter. Maybe you've done me a favor. Writing this down instead of speaking it actually feels easier. Maybe it's the longer distance between brain and fingers than brain and mouth that makes me feel like I'm somehow a little more distant from it. Diminishes that scary closeness you get when you bare your soul to someone. Or maybe that's bullshit. Anyway, there's only one way I know how to start this. A lot of people say they can barely remember their childhoods, or that their adolescent years are a blur. But my case is different. When I say I can't remember a single second of my existence between the ages of 16 and 18, I mean it literally. It's a complete blank space in my mind, a void of nothingness. That video you saw, I was 17 then. I don't remember it. Don't remember what happened before, how I got to be that way, or what happened after. The next time my memory kicks in is when I was getting ready to go away to college. I'm not sure when I developed my inability to remember that 2-year period, but the last memories I have before that blank spot is of what I think was November or December of 2002. I was sitting at the table in the den of our old house with Mom, Dad, and my older brother Deacon. We'd been playing board games, and Deacon was being a sore loser, insisting he'd win if we played a different game. I can't remember which one. Even though they were tired and it was past our bedtime, Mom and Dad agreed. Unlike me, they always gave Deacon what he wanted, and I never understood why they parented us so differently. Deacon ordered me to get the game he wanted to play. I remember looking at my parents, hoping they'd say something like, "No, Deacon, don't order your little brother around like that. Go get it yourself." But that would have necessitated a miracle. So I slumped out of my chair and did as he'd ordered. I went to the walk-in closet beneath the staircase. Our house was sparsely furnished and very minimally decorated, but that closet was the opposite, where the things whose presence was decreed unsuitable for our everyday lives were sent to hide away. There was an overloaded freestanding shelving unit that hugged the right wall, and on it I spotted the game Deacon had demanded we play. The box was falling apart. When I lifted it up, one side of it fell open and pieces dropped out, including the dice. The dice hit the floor and shot under a dusty old cabinet to the side of the shelves. I remember setting the box aside so I could drop down on my knees and try to fish it out from under there. And then, nothing. A void of 2 years. Blank space until I was getting ready for college.
Hey, I'm so sorry for that last message. That wasn't fair on you. Look, just please call me, okay? I'll explain. Please, just give me that chance, okay? Okay, bye. Hey, it's me trying you again. I can't tell if you won't speak to me because of the video or because I was pissed when I left you that first message. I was angry. I mean, I'm human, okay? You can't hold that against me. And the video, look, that's not me. Surely you know that, right? I mean, my voice, I can't even make it sound like that now if I try. And it was so long ago. I mean, you can't hold that against me. Come on.
I saw a couple of doctors and psychologists about my strange inability to remember that period of my life, but it amounted to nothing. And, in truth, my attempt to seek professional advice had been at least in part motivated by an anxiety around asking my parents about it. I couldn't put my finger on why, but every time I thought of bringing it up to them, I felt a sense of dread. Anyway, I procrastinated so long that I never got the chance to ask my father. He died unexpectedly of an aneurysm not long after his 70th birthday. It wasn't until Mom had a health scare that I finally decided to go through with it, worried that she too might soon not be around to give me any answers she might have. I drove over to see her, sat down with her in the den. I did my best to explain how I was feeling, how disturbing it felt to have a part of my life I had no access to, a part that might as well not have existed. I'd been so concentrated on what I was saying that I'd been looking down at my shoes the whole time. When I craned my head back up to look at Mom, I was struck by how unexpected the expression on her face appeared to me. She looked almost disappointed. "I always knew this day would come," she said. "You need to speak to Shannon." I was dumbstruck. I don't know what I'd been expecting, but it wasn't that. I pushed her, wanting an explanation for what the hell she was talking about, but she refused to say anything more and wrote down a phone number. I'd never heard of Shannon, never heard anyone in my family mention that name, but I called her and did my best to explain who I was. She listened patiently, interjecting only with an occasional "I see," or "Okay, yes." She had a soft voice, and what I assumed was a British accent. She said the best thing to do would be for me to come see her, and that she'd explain everything. She gave me her address. It was a couple of hours' drive away, a small town I'd driven through but never stopped in. I found myself walking up to the front steps of a modest house and being greeted at the door by her. I was struck immediately by her unique energy, calm and somehow unknowable. Feeling nervous, I tried to break the ice as she led me into the living room and asked me to sit. I asked her how long she'd been living in Canada, and she told me she didn't exactly live here, that her work took her many different places. I realized I didn't have it in me to make small talk beyond that, and asked her flat out to explain to me what was going on. "You don't remember me at all?" she asked. I tried my hardest, searched my mind for a flicker of recognition, but eventually shook my head. "No." She looked impressed somehow. "Your parents came to me for help," she added. "I am a psychologist of sorts." I stared back at her, silent, beckoning her to keep going. "You had some very disturbing experiences when you were young," she said. "We decided the best thing to do would be to block those memories." I asked her if she'd been the one who'd blocked them, and she confirmed my suspicion. "Are those memories gone?" I asked. "Or is there a way to get them back?" She looked away from me and sighed. She started to reply with, "Yes, but," so I stopped her in her tracks. "It's my mind, my past, my choice," I firmly interjected, making it clear there was no room for talking me down. Shannon pondered for a moment, and then clasped her hands together and stared at me intently, with a grave expression, so solemn I took it as a warning. "I can give you access to them once more," she said, "but they won't come all at once. They may not even come in order. It'll be a gradual process of reintegrating them, and then reordering them in your mind once you have all the fragments." She paused, stared at me with a steely focus. "And I can't tell you how disturbing that process might be," she added. I told her I'd do whatever it took. "So be it," she replied. Shannon explained that the way back to those memories was through a form of hypnosis, that I needed to enter a trance state in order for her to guide me to the dark recesses those secret memories had been hidden away in. I insisted we start right there and then, and wouldn't take no for an answer. Shannon got me to lay down on the couch. She blacked out the windows and played a low-volume audio of some strange tones which sounded dissonant and off to me somehow. She sat on the armchair beside me and told me to close my eyes. I was expecting the usual picture yourself at age 16 kind of thing, but instead she softly muttered her way through a series of words I couldn't understand, in a language I didn't recognize. But once she'd been at it long enough, I started to hear patterns and realized it was the same 7 or so sentences, looping over and over. I snuck a glance at the clock on the wall. She'd been at it for 10 minutes already. I was getting ready to throw in the towel, tell her it was a crock of shit and she was nuts. But then, it was as if a projector screen had been draped over my eyes, and I was watching a POV, I guess my POV, of an experience long forgotten. I was in what looked like a basement, a place I didn't recognize, dimly illuminated by a pale bulb dangling from the ceiling above my head. Around 12 feet in front of me was something that looked like a homemade tent. It looked like several pieces of canvas, all slightly different color and size, had been woven together to form some kind of tiny makeshift room. I inched closer, and as I did, I noticed something on the ground. There was a circle of blackish powder, like ash. The powder had been scattered in a way which snaked around the room in a circle. The tent was in the center of it. I stepped into that circle, breaking the ring of ash, and it was as if the projector screen had been reeled back up, my eyes now just looking at the clock in Shannon's home. "That was a fragment," Shannon said. "We've opened the gateway." I heard her words, but they didn't really sink in. Instead, I was still focusing on the clock. "I don't understand," I said, pointing at the time. She followed the invisible line from my finger, glanced at the clock, and then back at me. "You've been under for 3 hours," she said. Shannon forced me to take a couple of days break before our next session, insisting that putting me under again any sooner could be very dangerous. I barely left my apartment during that time, pacing back and forth, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Where was that basement? What was that tent? And most disturbingly of all, what was inside it? The time finally came for me to head back to Shannon's house, and she went through the same ritual of putting me under. This time, when the projector-like images burst into life before my eyes, I was back grabbing the board game from the walk-in closet underneath the stairs, the last thing I could remember before the gaping void in my recollections. Only this time, the experience continued beyond me lowering myself down to hunt for the dice that had fallen out of the box. Where there had been blank space, there was now action. It was like watching a movie with cut frames put back in. I realized I wouldn't be able to fish the dice from under the cabinet, so I got back up and moved the cabinet to one side. And when I did, I saw something behind it that I wasn't expecting to. There was a panel in the wall, like the frame of a small door, maybe 5 feet high and 2 feet wide. I pushed at it gently, feeling it give a little. So I pushed a little harder. Sure enough, it opened and revealed a staircase. A staircase to a hidden basement I never knew we had. My mind raced as I watched the memories that had been hidden from me from so long. What was this secret place? A basement where something lived inside a strange tent-like structure, ringed by a circle of ash. I took my first step down the staircase and the image vanished. I was back in Shannon's home. I insisted she put me back under, but she refused. No matter how much I yelled and screamed that I needed to go back, needed to understand, she just wouldn't do it. "We're already walking you back into the danger," she said softly but sternly. "Going any faster could be catastrophic." I tore out of there and drove as fast as I could over to my parents' house, the one I'd grown up in, where my mother now lived alone since my father's passing. I let myself in and found my mother peacefully napping in front of the TV, so I made my way to the closet under the stairs. There was far less in there now, which meant the right wall was totally visible. The panel was gone, replaced with a solid wall, but I thought I could see the faintest line of where the panel had been, now sealed with concrete and painted over. Just like my memory.
Hey, I just read your message and I'm confused. You won't take my calls, but then you message me asking me not to leave creepy messages on your voicemail. And you said in the middle of the night. What are you talking about? I mean, I was asleep by 11. Anyway, look, it doesn't matter. This is a crazy way to communicate. Just pick up the phone or send me a message and tell me where to meet you and when. I mean, this is driving me nuts. Okay, please at least think about it.
I called Shannon to apologize for how I'd reacted after our last session. She said she understood and agreed to see me again so we could carry on with the process. This time, once she put me under and the image appeared before my eyes, I was staring up at the ceiling of the den in our home. I had the sense that I was totally immobilized somehow, completely unable to move. I could hear my mother screaming for my brother to go to his room. My father's face came into view above me, staring down at me, his face contorted with anxiety. "It wasn't meant for him," he cried, his voice betraying a panic I'd never heard from him before or since. "He isn't the one. He isn't the one." I heard footsteps pounding the floorboards and felt my mother's presence enter the room. "Call the elders," I heard her say. "Now!" And then, I was back in Shannon's home. I sat up, stared at her, and asked her who the elders were. She stayed quiet a moment. She never lost eye contact with me, but I could see the gears churning in her mind, like she was making quick calculations. What to tell me, what not to. "Your family belongs to a special group of chosen people," she said. "Being special comes with risks. Unfortunately, what happened to you, the consequences of you interacting with what was in that basement, is one of those risks." My head was swimming with a million questions, all of them rushing around too quickly for me to grab onto. I made a few garbled attempts to speak, but Shannon quickly realized she was going to have to do the talking. "Your parents were the guardians of what was being kept down there, watching over it until it was ready to enter the vessel that it needed," she said. "But it had to be the right vessel, which you were not. When they extracted it from you, the process was so disturbing, I concealed it from your consciousness. But it meant the entity was lost forever." I stared back at her. I couldn't believe how detached she was being when we were talking about something so horrifying and bizarre being unleashed upon a 16-year-old. "I'm the victim," I said. "How can you be so cold?" Her expression didn't shift, remained as neutral as it had ever been. "Some see it that way," she replied. "Others feel that you ruined years of important work." And then, well, I won't go into how things ended between Shannon and I. All I'll say is that it wasn't pretty. I left there and made my way back to the family home, back to my mother. She was sitting in the armchair in the den when I arrived, gazing out the window. I trudged over and came to a stop a few feet away from her. I told her what Shannon had revealed to me, but that still nothing really made sense. I gave my mother an ultimatum. She had to explain everything to me, or she'd never see me again. She continued to stare out the window. I searched her face for a glimmer of what she might be thinking, but was left wanting. When she finally turned her head to look at me, she only had one word to say. Goodbye. The video. I don't know who sent it to you. When I see myself making those hideous gestures, my eyes wild like that, how violent I'm being. Something else was inside me. The fragments have all come back to me now. I remember losing ground to it every day, as it took a greater and greater hold, until I was almost a paralyzed bystander, witnessing my life being lived under the dictation of something else, powerlessly watching as its actions became more and more sinister. And I remember the pain and suffering of what they had to do to tear it out of me. But it's not there anymore. It hasn't been for a long, long time. So please, talk to me.
Hey, it's me. This is the last time I'll call, I promise. Look, I've sent you a letter. Just please read it.